gonna review Canalis, a game by Philippe Dubarry. It's a game set in the city-state of Tempest, which means it's in the AEG series, which includes games like Love Letters, Courtier, Dominare, Mercante, and this one, Canalis. Came out in 2013. It's a game about tile placement and connecting buildings to activate them and trying to figure out how to create certain conditions to fulfill missions, and you do this through a drafting mechanism. So it mixes things that I like a lot, buildings that need resources, and drafting, it's a mechanism that I really appreciate, with things that I don't particularly care for, like tile placement and spatial reasoning. So let's see what the game is about, how it works, and we'll come back. So when you open the box and display the board on the table, it's not gonna be nice to look at. And I guess it's kind of thematic because the game is about rich builders trying to expand the city into a swamp zone, and this is the swamp that is aptly brownish and bad to look at. But no matter what, it's not gonna entice you when you open it, and everything else is decent. The quality is very good, the design is very good, but it's not as visually pleasing as other games can be. Nonetheless, when you start placing stuff on the board and playing cards, it gets increasingly and increasingly nicer. This is the main part of the game. It's the board where all the buildings will be placed, the canals will be placed, and where the resources are randomly distributed in the beginning of the game. The game takes place over 4 stages. In each stage, you will get a hand of cards, 4 with 4 players, 5 with 3 players, 7 with 2 players, taken by the correct deck. This is for stages 1 and 2. This one is, of course, for stages 3 and 4. And you will play all of those cards with the drafting mechanism. So you get 5, pick 1, pass on the left, and you repeat this 5 times until, with 3 players 5 times, with 4 players 4 times, etc., until everyone has played the required number of cards. When you play your card, you will always have a choice between building one building or scheming. If you scheme, you get stuff. Usually you get money or you get points, you take money from other players. Sometimes you are forced to build even with the scheme, but there are different things to build. If you choose to build, the card will determine whether you will build buildings that come in 4 different sizes and that have different effects, or gardens, again in different sizes, or canals. Basically, gardens and the white buildings are have individual rules. Like gardens give you points if you build close to them, and each white buildings will explain what they do. But the main mechanic of the game is in the industrial buildings. The industrial buildings are like this. They have a cost to play, a condition that is fulfilled when you play them, and a bonus if you can score them. Scoring means connect them to the resource they need and at least one worker. And the bigger the building, the higher the request. As you see, this building has bigger bonus in points, but also requires two resources instead of 1. So when you place him on the board, place the building on the board, you will then try to connect it to workers and to the resource they require. In this case, they require this resource and this resource, so I'll hope to be able to connect it like this. Building is connected via canals or via adjacency. If you can do this, great. But more often than not, people will try to stop you. You will have to go around stuff. You will have to pass through other players' locks. Basically, canals that you have to pay to use. Let's say this was here, okay? And so you will have to pay 1 to whoever build the lock. Every time there are a bunch of tokens to mark down who owns what. So you keep building, things get increasingly more difficult while the board gets full with buildings, and in the end you will have little to no space to play your buildings and canals and resources, etc. So you're getting score from the board and from the placement of stuff on the board. You're getting some points from the cards when you play them, but most importantly you get points at the end from missions. There is a public mission that is determined by your faction, which is randomly determined and gives you a specific mission plus an ability which is different. There are 6 different factions and each is double-sided, so basically there are 12 different factions that you may find yourself playing. But you also will have 2 or more secret missions like this, and they tell you the condition that you need to meet to score these big points. Since winning scores are usually between 90 and 110, 120 points, you can understand that scoring both of your missions and getting 30 points can be a very big deal, plus 10 or 15 more for your faction mission. So you have to build the convenient buildings, but at the same time keep an eye on your missions. Sometimes you will not be able to build, either because you don't have space on the board or because you don't have the required money, but you can always use schemes, and as I said, most of them give you money and points, which are never bad. Finally, there are certain interactions that can provide you with points or money. Whenever you use a resource from the board, you get money for trading in that one. And whenever you use someone else's tenement, the building that gives you workers, and you only use that one for workers, you give them 2 additional points. At the end of the 4th stage, so when you have played between 16 and 28 actions, depending on the number of players, the game is over, where we score all the secret and public missions. Whoever has the most wins. This game takes place in a setting I like a lot, but that setting doesn't come true a lot, because yes, you have people on the cards, especially on the mission cards, and they are people from the games that you may have known before, like the senators from Dominare, the king from Love Letter, etc., etc. But they don't do much. They just require you to build certain buildings. So it's not like Dominare or Courtier, where the role is very important and different people act differently. These are all the same. Build this and this, and connect them, and you will score points. So the team is not strong in this game. And as I said, I'm not usually a big fan of tile placing. But the original take that this has really got me intrigued. Basically, when you place a tile, you can place it wherever you have room for it. This means that you can focus on connection more than on spatial adjacency. And the clever way of introducing canals means that you can move to block other people directly. You don't have to surround them or think obliquously about what you're doing. It says in the rules that the game was changed from the original version in order to fit the theme of the city-state of Tempest, basically Venice, in terms of feeling. I don't know where the canal system and this weird way of going around things came about, but it really hit the spot for me. When I opened the game, when I first got to play it, I wasn't expecting much from it. But and even going to the rules, it didn't click with me. But the simplicity of the game, you just have to connect your industrial buildings to workers and resources, paired with the tinkiness and the cutthroatness of the situation on the board, made for a really, really interesting experience. It's still not at all a thematic game. I think that other games in the series bring the theme out more. But this is probably the most clever of the games in this series. Dominare maybe had a little more going on, but it was also more random. There is very little randomness in this one, because when you come to the important buildings, the one that let you score a lot, you usually have flexibility on what you're gonna play. And even when you're forced to play, let's say, the smelter per se works exactly like the die maker. You only need to connect it to a different set of resources. So there is really little randomness going on. The drafting reduces what there is, because you will have a notion of what's going on and you will decide what to pass to other people. So you really have to make do with what you get and try to find out not only where the best spot is on a tactical thinking, but you have to build your strategy and think, okay, I will place this here, hoping that later on people will need to use my lock, my canal, my tenement, and give me points. So the game feels much more like a typical Euro with resources and subsequent buildings that can be used by you and your opponents, giving you stuff, then it feels like Carcassonne or El Caballero, another game that I reviewed recently. So if you like tile placement, you will certainly find that here, but be aware that there is much more. Vice versa, if you, like I do, usually don't particularly care for the game, be assured that there will be much more to tickle your senses. You will have to come up with a big strategy, not only a tactic of the moment, and the game provides you with a very interesting experience. It's different from many other games that I have played. It plays in about an hour to an hour and a half, depending on your speed of play, and I really recommend it. Hope you had fun watching this review. Please consider checking out other of my reviews, and most importantly, have fun playing Canalis or any other game that suits your fancy. Bye guys.